All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. We got some NBA action today, Monday, November 18th. 8 games to dive into in today's video. Like we always do, I'm going to jump into each and every one of these games. I'll give you my prediction on the side. I'll give you my prediction on the total. We'll talk about any other plays like player props that we like within the game as well. But keep an eye on the pinned comment there. That'll direct you to all of my final plays for free if you do want to see what we're actually rolling with myself. In terms of what we have for a recap, we didn't have an NBA video yesterday. We were traveling back from a weekend away. 2 nights ago, we did go 1 and 2, unfortunately, there. But we do want to jump into the ride of the day. We didn't do it over the weekend just because when we're traveling and moving around and whatnot, it's very hard to, allocate all hours to work when we're on vacation. So we didn't get to the ride of the day, but let's jump back on board with the ride of the day today. If you guys don't know what it is, just use that hashtag ride of the day down in the comments. You can use ROTD as well. Each and every day, I jump on board with one person's play, give you a shout out in the next video, win or loss. Also shout you out over on my Twitter and on the post on the Guy Boston Sports site as well. So go ahead and get your favorite plays in there. I jump aboard with one person's play. We're still looking to ride with Jacob because he has not lost yet, right? So he is still streaking. So we're going to see what sports side Jacob has down in the comments. As always, guys, for the ride of the day plays, they have to be within -150 if we do want to consider them. So make sure to go ahead and get some plays down there. But what do you say we jump into this Monday slate? Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Let's rock. We're starting it off with Detroit taking on Chicago. Detroit 4-point favorites, 4.5-point favorites in this one here. That total 234. Interestingly enough, this Detroit team is looking pretty good, right? 7-8 so far on the season. That's not necessarily the good part, but 9-5-1 against the number. The one thing that I will say, I like this Detroit team a heck of a lot more when they're not favored, you know what I mean? And it's not like they have all these crazy impressive wins. This year they've beaten teams like Brooklyn and Washington, Toronto, Miami when they were stinking in that game where Detroit just controlled it. Atlanta was another one. So it's like this Detroit team's still kind of on rocky, grounding here for me, especially at a 4.5-point favorite spot. Now Chicago is rocky as it gets. They're 5-9 this year. They're not covering, but they have been better on the road. I think that this is kind of one where I'm obviously split in a couple different ways because I don't love either side, but the Bulls would probably be where I go here. I think that they just have a little bit more consistency behind them, not from a win-loss perspective so far this year, but just from a how are we going to play, who's going to get the ball, and that type of thing. So if you're on Detroit, fine, go for it. I'm not trying to talk anyone off of it, but I think I like Chicago in this spot. And then in terms of a total, I don't mind the under. You do have Chicago, the fastest team in the league right now, but Detroit should be able to rein that in a little bit. And one thing that I'll say is Chicago has been shooting a lot of threes this season, 4th most. I think it's top 10 most in terms of above the break 3 frequency, and then 4th most from the corner. And they've been scoring a lot, 6th most points per game from 3 so far this year. Detroit's actually covered the perimeter fairly well, so I guess good for them, right? And that might slow things down in terms of pace. Now, from a couple player prop perspectives, we can just jump into the outlier screen here. I like Jaden Ivey over 1.5 3-pointers made, as well as his over in points. Neither one of these has been a consistent, hitter for the entire season, but Detroit shoots a lot in the paint. Jaden Ivey, 2nd on the team in the last 10 games in terms of field goal attempts per game in the restricted area. Chicago dead last in terms of allowing points in the paint. So I do like his points, but I also don't mind his threes here because this is not a great Chicago perimeter defense, and I think that he could have some more volume. And then we turn it over to a plus money play here. Jalen Duren here, over 12.5 points. Exact same reason I just gave. A lot of points in the paint surrendered here by this Bulls team. So that's kind of my mindset with Jalen Duren. My problem is he can get in foul trouble. He's not always the most efficient scorer. So to me, it's worth it because there's a plus sign next to that number. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one, and when we do have a decent amount of games like today, we don't need to, dive in to ones that we don't think that there's much value in, and yikes. Yikes. New York laying 14 here against Washington. Not exactly a situation in which I'm loving either side. Like, that's a lot of points for New York to be favored by. And then Washington, on the other hand, it's like, I think you might need some more points if you like Washington. You know what I mean? So this is a tough one. I probably would say, if I needed to, I probably would say, screw it. Give me New York because they are just the better team, and this Washington team is just bad. Coulibaly looks like he's a game-time decision. Sadiq Bey is out. Deuce McBride game-time decision as well, but the injuries wouldn't even matter. Like, I think this is either, going to be a runaway game for the Knicks for our prediction, or we don't even touch it. So I guess I would lean towards the New York side of things, but that's one of the crazier lines in this entire slate to me. Obviously, it's the biggest margin and biggest spread, but overall, I just cannot get behind that. From a total perspective, though, I do think that this Knicks team has the ability to, and this is actually one where I don't mind this spot, this Knicks team should have the ability to slow down anything that Washington wants to do, right? Like, this Knicks team starting to get a little bit better at defending the perimeter. Not great yet, but at home, they've been a lot better. So, on the season, 25th in terms of points allowed from three. At home this year, 7th. So, definitely a little difference there. And Washington is going to like to shoot a lot of threes. It's kind of like all they're doing. So I think that Washington is going to try and play fast, but not the most efficient basketball, meaning an under 231 could be a look here. And then no player props that I'm really considering. Like I said, not my favorite spot on today's slate, and I would say it probably shouldn't be yours either, but you know what? A lot of psychos out there, and I love you more for it. Next game up, we have Miami taking on Philadelphia here. There are a couple injuries to note or to at least monitor because both guys are game time decisions. We have Jimmy Butler, who did not play yesterday. Miami on the back-to-back here. Jimmy Butler did not play yesterday. I believe he missed 3 or 4 in a row, right? So he's a game time decision here, so maybe he plays. And then Joel Embiid is also listed as a game time decision here. So you have arguably the most important player on each team, at least historically, questionable here. So let's keep an eye on that throughout the day, obviously. But regardless of that, like I guess I still think that this is probably a Miami spot. And Jaime Jaquez Jr. is also listed as a game time decision, and Tyrese Maxey out. Those are the two other injuries. I do think that this is still a Miami spot. They're at home here. I don't think that they looked all that terrible in that sort of 2-game series against Indiana. 124-111 win on, was it Friday? And then yesterday, they lost by 9. They were 3.5-point dogs. Like, yeah, without Jimmy Butler, I don't think that was that bad of a loss either. Like, anytime the Heat can kind of stay in a game with a fast-paced team, I feel like that is somewhat of a net win, and it took a huge fourth quarter for Indiana to kind of solidify that game. Miami played really well in the second half, so two good. They won that first game against Indiana. Then they had 2 ending really good quarters against Indiana. This Miami team may be on the uptick a little bit, and I think getting Jimmy Butler back might be a good look. So yeah, there's definitely a chance for this to be a final play as well. I like Miami here in this spot. In terms of that total 213, I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. I don't know if I touch something that low at 213, right? But I really am not inclined to go and race to thinking more points are scored, so probably end up sticking away from it, but I do think that this is somewhat of an under-type pace game. And from a player prop perspective here, let's jump in. I don't mind a Tyler Hero look. Now, this would definitely be, he's hitting 2 straight games against the Heat. This would definitely be a look more so if Jimmy Butler's out. You can see the difference of no Jimmy Butler, right? So no Jimmy Butler, 3 of 4 this year. Even last year, only 8 of 21, but that's kind of when he was finding his footing and guys were really locking in on him, right? But this season, so no Jimmy Butler versus this year with Jimmy Butler. It's been kind of a mixed bag, right? Like 75% time he's hit this with Jimmy Butler's points line, and then only 50% with. So I don't necessarily hate it without Jimmy, you know what I mean? Or excuse me, with Jimmy, but if Jimmy doesn't play, I do really like it. You can even see how much he's been cruising as of late, and at home this year, his last 2 games. So yeah, I think this is going to be a good spot. This is not a Philadelphia team that's guarding the perimeter all that well, and when I say all that well, not well whatsoever, allowing nearly 38% from 3 above the break 3, which Tyler Hero leads this team in the last 10 games in terms of field goal attempts from there, and they're not exactly the best just defensive team either, like from up there in terms of allowing points. So yeah, it could be a look. I will say that Jimmy Butler, like if he does play, even though I say I don't mind it either way, like if he doesn't play, then I'm probably way more inclined and in love with that. But if he does play, it may be something where we say, maybe not. Maybe it's not worth it with all these games on today. We don't need to force anything. And I do think I like Miami in this spot more than I like Tyler Hero, if that makes sense. Toronto taking on Indiana here. We just talked about Indiana coming off of that win against Miami, so we can give them credit there. Toronto, in terms of how they've been playing, not so great. They've lost, 9 of their last 10 and 7 straight, which is obviously tough. Now, have they played the easiest teams? Not necessarily. They've played, the Lakers twice within the last 10. They played the Celtics. They've played Milwaukee. They got a hot Detroit team. Like, I'll give Toronto a little bit of leeway. Not too much, because it's not like they've played this star-studded schedule, but it has been kind of a rough go for them. But obviously, the injuries are the biggest thing for them right now. Barnes still out. Brown still out. Olynyk still out. Quickly still out. And then you have Walter and Fernando as well. On the Indiana side of things, looks like their injuries are going to stay the same. from Nembhard, Neesmith, and Shepard. Shepard's actually a game-time decision. The other guys are out. This is a back-to-back spot, and if that's the reason why, this isn't a bigger number right now, it's at 4, then I guess that makes sense. But to me, this should scream Indiana. They're playing a little bit better basketball, I would say. 6-7 record compared to a 2-12 record, excuse me. And I would say that, okay, well, Toronto's kind of a covering machine, right? 9-5, but they've even slowed off in covering games, non-covering in 3 of their last 4. And Indiana's out here starting to look like a decent, against the number team as well. So Indiana, for me, I don't think this number is big enough to stay off of it. That total is all the way up there at 236, and I understand it. I would probably think about a team total over for Indiana before I do jump in the Toronto side of things, so that might be where I go. I will say this has not been the best of defenses on either side, so that explains why that total is so high, but neither one of these teams are like flying in terms of pace this year. They were, Toronto was at least for sure, and now they've slowed down. Last 10 games here, Toronto 18th in terms of pace. This is a team that was like a top 5 team, and Indiana is kind of creeping towards playing what they normally played like last year, a huge fast-paced team, but right now they're still kind of middle of the pack, so it's because of the defense that this is obviously a high total, but I don't necessarily love either offense and whatnot, but if I had to pick an offense, it would be Indiana. So I think I go team total over, but I'm definitely more inclined to take a peek at Indiana. And then from a player prop perspective, I like RJ Barrett under 6.5 assists. You're getting plus money for that one, plus 108, which is obviously good to see. That's over on FT. He's hit the under here in 6 of 11 games so far this year, 3 straight games against Indiana. And the thing that I like about this spot is that, and I should have mentioned this why I like Indiana as well. Both these teams love to shoot at the rim. Indiana's going to be better defensively at the rim than Toronto is. Boom. There's another reason why I like Indiana. But that also has to do with why I like RJ Barrett, because I think RJ Barrett's going to try and get to the rim, and he's going to have to kick out. That's how he's been getting his assists. He had he had a bunch of assists in his last game. Yeah, 15 assists against Boston. But that's due to the fact that, we're getting open shots and whatnot. I don't think Indiana is going to allow these open looks and guys to hit their shots. So I think this is a decent spot, and that was a lot of points scored by Toronto. When they've been scoring their typical 105 and whatnot, he hasn't been cashing it. So I think that line gets inflated due to his last couple games, and he's not going to have the drive and kick opportunities for knockdown shots. Grady Dick is going to hit all of his assisted buckets. That's the only one that I'm thinking is going to catch and shoot and knock him down. You know what I mean? So yeah, RJ Barrett under an assist is definitely a look for me as well. All right, guys, we've crossed the halfway point of today's video. If you made it this far in the video, go ahead and comment 12. Truly do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are subscribed here to the new channel and hitting that like button as well. And get those hashtag ride of the days in. But comment 12 if you guys made it this far into the video. Let's go ahead and get ready for the second half. Ooh, little sports term there going into the second half. All right, we got Milwaukee taking on Houston. Milwaukee just 4-point favorites in this one. That total at 220.5. I've seen this thing move around big time this morning, so I think that thing's shifting, just FYI. But in terms of what we like in this one, there is going to be some stipulations and whatnot. We both have, both are Damian Lillard and Giannis being game time decisions in this one. Still no Chris Middleton, obviously. And then Steven Adams out for Houston. Now, if Dame plays, I think this is a great spot for him. It's kind of been the weakness of Houston so far this season, defending point guards, and obviously Damian Lillard, one of the better point guards out there in general, right? But overall, I do think that this could be a nice little look for Milwaukee. Milwaukee, who can score in the paint decently, probably won't have their way today, but defensively, and yes, I'm mentioning Milwaukee and defensively in the same sentence, defensively, I think they might match up really well with this Houston team. This Houston team likes to shoot, less frequently as you get close, further and further away from the basket, so obviously they like to shoot a lot towards the basket. This Milwaukee team hasn't been terrible. 5th fewest points allowed in the paint so far this year. Just a 60.8% field goal percentage in the restricted area in the last 10 games. 41.3 in the paint. I don't think that this is a tough spot for them. Now, if Houston was a decent corner shooting team, because obviously you get in the paint, and if nothing's working, you can kick it out to either side, I think that I might even think about this differently. So yes, I am nitpicking and kind of really scrutinizing a couple points in this game, but it's how I made up my mind of liking Milwaukee, by the way. But Milwaukee is a really bad team at defending corner threes. They're good at defending the paint so far, which is crazy because saying they're good at defending anything hasn't exactly been their forte in like the last 2 years. But anyways, if you get into the paint and then kick to the corners, then yeah, you might even be trading a 2 for a 3, and then you might as well have let the guy take the layup, right? But Houston does not take a lot of corner threes. The 5th fewest per game in the last 10 games in the league, does not take a lot of corner threes, and they do not hit a lot of corner threes. They don't hit a lot of threes in general. So I think that that's the way to beat Milwaukee. And if you're not doing that, then it might be okay to look at them here. So I like the favorite here, the home team, Milwaukee. Also like some Damian Lillard looks. We're going to wait to see if he's playing or not. But yeah, give me Milwaukee. And then in terms of the totals at 220.5, I'm going to lean towards the over, but I will say it's, and much like I've said about a lot of totals today, like it's not exactly a total day for your boy Ev, right? I think that Milwaukee does play decent defense here, so I wouldn't even be opposed to thinking of a Houston team total under, but I don't know if I'd go with both, like Milwaukee and the points and the team total under. You know what I mean? It's probably one or the other for me, but totals have been a little, maybe I just having an off total reading day because they've been a little weird for me today. I'd rather look at Dame or Milwaukee, but I could convince myself, like I just mentioned, of a team total under for Houston. All right, we got Phoenix taking on Orlando here. This line has moved significantly since the screenshot. I believe we're looking at like 3.5 now. Total's only up to 11.5. But overall, it has been moving around, so just wanted to throw that out there. This is obviously a Phoenix team that is just absolutely struggling with injury. They were on a tear. They've lost 4 of their last 5 games, and they're still 9-5 this year. So just put that into perspective, right? At home, they're 5-1 now. They are just getting off of a 4-game road trip. So whether it's the Beal injury, the Durant injury, both are out today, or the fact that they were on the road, I'm not exactly sure because I do think this is a home team. Going up against an Orlando team that's on a roll. They've won 5 straight games. They've covered in 5 straight games. They've had to cover some big numbers, 8.5 against New Orleans, 11.5 against Washington, 9 against Charlotte. But I do think that this is a Orlando team. They just played 5 home games. They are 1-6 on the road this year and 7-0 at home. Both teams struggle on the road and win well at home. Look at what we have. Phoenix as an underdog here at home. I don't care about Durant. I don't care about Beal. Well, I care about it, but in this case, I don't. Give me the Suns here with those points, and even potentially just to win outright. Total at 211. That seems super, super low, and I get it. This Orlando team is going to try and slow things down, and honestly, the Suns haven't been the fastest of teams, but I like Phoenix here today. I think that they're going to have some success in the mid-range and potentially from the corner, not necessarily just from above the break, so I don't like Devin Booker today, but I think that we could see some mid-range and some nice play in terms of corner threes and whatnot to bump this score. So maybe a Phoenix team total over. From a player prop perspective, I also don't mind taking a peek here at Tyus Jones over 17.5 points plus assists. I don't mind his points alone, but I'd probably say points plus assists, 3-pointers made, and assists are the 3 spots that I wouldn't mind taking a peek at him before I go just strictly 2 points. He's obviously has a bigger role here without Beal, without Durant. Like even if we look at, so on the season, 8 of 14, hasn't been all that tremendous here, but 2 of 3 with neither one of these guys out. You say just without Durant, 3 of 5 right there. You say just without Beal, 3 of 5. So with these 2 guys out together, it should give him a little bit of an uptick. And we saw a double-double from him last game, right? The one thing I will mention, and I failed to mention so far while we were talking about the side, Phoenix is on a back-to-back. So, yeah, that stinks. They have, I will say Orlando is yet to cover a game in which they have a rest advantage, so maybe that works for Phoenix. But overall, I'm trying not to focus on that because this is, with those guys being injured, a lot of, youngish guys getting some run and whatnot. So hopefully that doesn't matter. And like I said, they're at home here. I think that should not go overlooked. Phoenix, I like their team total over, and then a potential Tyus Jones look is what I'm peeking at this game. All right, Sacramento taking on Atlanta. Tons of injuries in this one, mainly new ones on the Sacramento side of things. I wouldn't say new, but recent-ish development. So Malik Monk, that's an old one. Then we have Sabonis, who is unlikely to play here, doubtful, and DeMar DeRozan already ruled out. So the starting lineup of Sacramento is Fox, Herter, McDermott, Murray, and Lyles, going up against Atlanta, who has started to get used to their starting lineup. Bogdanovich still out, Zeller out, Hunter out. You know what I mean? Nothing, like I said, much new for them. Their starting lineup: Trae Young, Daniels, Richacher? I don't know how to say his name. Johnson and Capella. I can handle those 2. So, yeah, we do have a bunch of injuries. Sacramento probably getting the brunt of it, but I guess to me, it only just speaks to why this is at a 4.5 point line. You know what I mean? I don't necessarily think that I jump all the way to the Atlanta side of things. I'm not really in love with what Atlanta's been doing, especially just from a defensive perspective and whatnot. So I will still take a peek at Sacramento. Not exactly something I'm enthralled with because of the injuries, but like I said, it's kind of a default lean or prediction due to the fact that Atlanta hasn't been all that, impressive. From a total perspective, that is a really, really big number, but it makes a lot of sense. Like, no DeRozan, no Sabonis this game. If it's going to be in De'Aaron Fox's hands versus the Hawks, like, I think that we could see a really fast-paced game. So I'll slightly take a peek at the over. And in terms of what I'd like from a player prop perspective, only because there is a nice plus money sign next to it, right? De'Aaron Fox over 2.5 threes. You can see 2 games in a row now he's cashed it. And honestly, just from his points perspective, he's been absolutely going off, 60 and 49. So if he's going to continue to score a lot of points, he's going to hit some threes. And for that number, I don't think that we can overlook it. You know what I mean? So yeah, I'll lean towards Fox hitting the threes. That's probably it. Like I said, it's kind of wonky because of the fact that we have so many injuries on the Sacramento side of things. But I guess we still find some things we like to some degree. All right, Clips taking on Golden State. Steph Curry is listed as a game time decision, as well as Lindy Waters, which I do think is worth noting because I like his sort of production uptick when Steph's out, just from a threes perspective. Still no Kawhi Leonard or PJ Tucker for the Clippers. In terms of how these two teams have been playing recently, 3 straight wins for Golden State, and yeah, kind of impressive. OKC, Dallas, and then the one win that I guess isn't all that impressive would be Memphis, right? Going up against the Clippers, who have been kind of spotty, 5-5 in their last 10, coming off of a nice one, I guess, against Utah. To me, this is still a Golden State spot if Steph plays. If not, I'm not exactly sure if I still get to the Clippers side of things, but Golden State favored by 5 here now. I think maybe indicates that Steph most likely is playing. And the Clippers are also on a back-to-back here. That win against Utah was the last night. So yeah, I think this is a spot in which I'm comfortable looking at Golden State to win by 5 or more. In terms of that total, 2 good defensive teams, but that total just isn't high enough for me. Now, the Clippers defense is good, the Golden State defense is good, but I still think that the pace that the Golden State Warriors are playing at and the efficiency, they're the 4th highest efficient offense so far in the league this season, and I believe they're like 2nd or 3rd on the road, so throw that out there, right? I still think this is a little bit too low, but maybe it's like what we're thinking with Phoenix or some other teams, like maybe instead of that full pace, because the Clippers will play slow, and Golden State is a good defense, so just if we kind of start to, erase some factors and variables, maybe we still just take a peek at, say, a team total over for Golden State and whatnot. That way, if it's a close game and whatnot, back and forth, all we're looking for is points from Golden State, right? And right now, you can get their team total at over 112.5. I don't necessarily mind that. It's a little pricey there, maybe over 113.5, but either way, neither one of those are something that I'm like, oh my God, that's a crazy number for them to score, right? In terms of head-to-head here, last time they played, the Clippers won this one 112-104. That was back in October, and we did see some injuries in that one. Steph did play, only played 25 minutes or so, didn't look all that tremendous. So yeah, I think it's worth noting that this is a revenge spot for Golden State as well. But guys, no player props really in this one. But guys, it's going to wrap it up for today's show. Hope you guys did enjoy. You know what to do. If you did, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button as well. And we'll catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.